Hi, this is your girl, Yannick DaCosta, and you are listening to GuildCast, a podcast from the Graphic Artists Guild.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.
Okay, so they are obviously different things. There are things out there in the world that you can protect by both copyright and by trademark, but they provide you with different protection, right? So if you get a copyright when you needed a trademark, it's like buying car insurance to protect you if your house burns down. Like, it's really nice that you bought car insurance, but it's not protecting you against the risk.
GuildCast is brought to you in part by Graphic Arts Today. This week in GuildCast, we're bringing you resources, COVID resources, as we throw back to 2020 archives.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Secondari, and I am a small business owner. I run a design firm called Studiolo Secondari, and we focus on publication design, branding, and communications. But more importantly, I'm also on the board of the Graphic Artists Guild, and it is in that position that I am moderating this talk. This is the third of our town halls, our Graphic Artists Guild town halls, that we've developed to hopefully assist you as small business people in this really crazy world that we find ourselves in of a COVID-19 economy. And we are super grateful to Michele Berdinis for speaking with us today. This is the 4th town hall that we've had in the past 2 weeks. And Michele is going to talk to us about all things legal as related to the current condition and what we as business owners can do to prepare ourselves for the current conditions. I want to mention that we don't have any further town halls scheduled just now, but you'll be getting a survey in a day related to this talk. And in that survey, if you have found these town halls helpful and you would like us to continue, please let us know in the text field that you'd like us to continue. And if you have any ideas for topics for future town halls that would be helpful for you, please let us know, and we'll do our best to gather that input and put some more town halls together. I know that there's a lot of content out there now. When we started these town halls about 3 weeks ago, started developing them, there really wasn't that much content. And I know some people are feeling overwhelmed. Other people are really grateful for it. So we just want to be sure that we are reacting to the needs of you as small business owners and creatives. Again, we've made these town halls available to everybody, not just to Guild members, and we've made them free because we really want to help, because we see that as our role at the Graphic Artists Guild. So I'm going to just give you a brief little pitch about the Graphic Artists Guild. We are a membership organization for creatives. We enable graphic artists and other design professionals to build and maintain successful careers by providing skills and support, from advice on daily tasks of running a creative business to going to bat for our community with business and government leaders. We do a ton of advocacy around copyright, which is something that Michele will probably be touching on. And we are a membership organization, so we would love you guys to join our membership organization. And you can do that by going to our website, which is graphicartistsguild.org. And there you can find information about membership. And you can also find our 2 COVID pages, which have information. The first COVID page has information about all of the loans and all of the financial assistance, government assistance that's been developed, and is being provided to us as small business owners. And then the second page, the social distancing page, has access to the webinars, because these are all recorded and they're available to you to refer to whenever you want, or to share this link with your friends who you think would benefit from this. And on that page, we also have some lighter stuff. We have pictures of people's workspaces. We have really great cartoons, because hell, we're a creative organization and we do fun stuff. So that's that part of the conversation. So now, without further ado, I just want to introduce Michele. Michele Berdinis has been practicing intellectual property and business law for over 20 years. Until a few years ago, she was a partner at a boutique firm where she represented startups and small businesses, starting at formation and all the way through to acquisition. Now she's having a blast doing her own startup, Beeline Legal. So, Michele, I'm going to hand this over to you now. Thank you so much.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So let's get this show on the road. So just so you know, this whole thing, I can't advance the slides. Hold on. There we go. When Linda and I talked about this topic 2 weeks ago, which is 600 years ago in COVID time, we kind of settled on some topics, and it's kind of evolved over that time just because everything's evolving so quickly. So the title of this talk is What in the World is Force Majeure? And the advertisement for this said that we would be covering these 4 topics at the top. If my business can't pay its bills, can my creditors come after my personal assets? Do I have to pay my rent? Can my clients cancel their signed contract? And can I cancel contracts for things I don't need? But I'll be adding in a bunch of different topics that my clients and friends have been asking me about, and also things that I've spent time figuring out for my own business that I thought would be helpful. There'll be plenty of time at the end for Q&A, but use the chat and jump in at any time with whatever questions you have. The talk is relatively short compared to the time we have, because I want to leave time for the questions that you have, because this is evolving so quickly that there's just no way to keep up with what people's needs are. So just tell me what your needs are and we'll deal with them. Okay, so the first question is, can business creditors come after my personal assets? So the answer to that question is, if all of these bullets are true, then yes. So the first thing is, are you running your business through a corporation or a limited liability company, or some other, there's limited liability, limited partnerships. There's a bunch of different entities, but those are the 2 entities that most people use. So those are the ones on the slide. So if you actually have a corporation or an LLC that you run your business through, that's the first thing. So that's one thing you have to have. The second is whether the obligation is actually in the name of the corporation or the LLC. So when you signed the lease for your office or your co-working space, did you sign it as Michele Berdinis, or did you sign it as Berdinis Law PC, right? So who is the actual person on that contract? Can
I ask a question here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you paid for it, so like I'm thinking about my WeWork space.
Yeah.
I paid for that with my Studiolo Secondari credit card. That's basically what my lease is just right. That I pay it monthly. Is that covered then? There's
probably also a lease. My co-working space is through the yard, and you probably also signed some kind of an agreement with them. And
so how would I know that it was signed as my business instead of signed?
Right. So you'd have to go look at the, whatever agreement it was, and however it was when you filled out an application or whatever it was that you did that caused that name to get put into that agreement. How did that go down? Was it in the name of Linda, or was it in? So
it would need to appear as Studiolo Secondari Inc.
Exactly. This agreement is between WeWork and
Studiolo Secondari.
Right, exactly. Okay. So that's the next question. The third bullet is there a personal guarantee? So if you have not necessarily co-working space, but if you have like a normal lease for an office or a space, I can pretty well guarantee that you have signed a personal guarantee on that lease. So that would be a separate document that goes along with the lease that says if there's rent due and the company on the lease hasn't paid that rent, and the rent is due, they can come after you personally because you have guaranteed the payment that the corporation or limited liability company was going to make. So that's if you have a business loan through the SBA or your bank, or you have a credit card, or you have a lease, 99% chance that you've personally guaranteed those debts, and other stuff, probably not. But those three things you probably have personally guaranteed. And then the fourth bullet is the one that a lot of people fall down on, and that's whether or not you actually respected the existence of your corporation or LLC. So corporations they're a lot like Tinkerbell, right? If you don't believe in it, then nobody else has to either, and they will disappear. So if you do things like use your company credit card when you go buy groceries, or you use your personal credit card when you buy stuff for the company, or you don't end up putting the company's name on your contract that you have with your clients, or you just kind of is it your alter ego? Then in that case, a lawyer can pierce the corporate veil, such a lovely phrase, pierce the corporate veil and reach through that entity and go after your personal assets. The other thing that allows piercing the corporate veil is if that entity doesn't have what it needs to do business, right? So, for example, I had these two women come to me years ago. They were in the business of buying homes, fixing them up and selling them. And they were now arguing with each other, and they wanted to figure out, how is this all going to work in the argument between them? So they had formed an LLC, but there was nothing in the LLC. Every time they bought one of these homes to fix it up, they bought it in their names personally. So whatever the agreement was that related to that LLC doesn't matter because there's nothing in the LLC. So you need to have, your computer and your licenses and all that stuff need to be in your company, and your company needs to have the things that it needs to do business. If there's nothing in the box, then your creditors can say, oh, that was just a joke, and they can come after your personal assets. So those four things, if you have all four of those things, then your creditors cannot come after your personal assets, and your personal assets will be safe. Okay, so that was the first question that I promised to answer. These three questions are really all the same question. So do you have to pay your rent on your co-working space or your office? Can your clients cancel signed contracts? Can you cancel contract for things you don't need? So we're going to look first at the lawyer's answer, and then we're going to look at the business person's answer, because that's what these times call for. So this is where the force majeure clause comes in. So the general rule is that if a contract can be canceled entirely or partially if performance has been made impracticable by the occurrence of a contingency, the non-occurrence of which was the basic assumption on which the contract was made. So if I have a contract, Linda, to buy a boat from you, and there's a hurricane and the boat is destroyed in the hurricane, I don't have to go through that deal with you. If one of the famous cases is I agree to buy your cow, and that I'm buying that cow because I need it to use as a stud for the rest of my herd, and then it turns out that cow is sterile. We don't have to go through with the contract. So that's the general rule. But what happens is that the general doesn't apply if the contract actually anticipates the situation and says what happens, right? So if the contract doesn't say anything about what happens if there's a hurricane and the boat is destroyed, then we don't have to go through with it. But if the contract says you have to buy it even if the hurricane comes and destroys the boat, then we have to go through with it. So did the contract that you're looking at assume that the economy wouldn't be disrupted by a global pandemic and everyone would be spending several months restricted to their homes? So it probably didn't say that, but most contracts have a clause like that, and that clause is called force majeure. So let's look at a couple
Can I interrupt again? Yeah. So is force majeure the same as acts of God?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just everybody knows what acts of God is. So if I title this what is acts of God, then nobody would come to my talk.
I get it.
Okay. So force majeure. Yeah. So let's look at a couple. So this is an excerpt from my contract with the yard. So the first question is, does the force majeure clause excuse your performance? And as you can see on here, what this does is actually excuse the yard's performance, not mine. So there's not much I can do about this, right? So it says that the yard won't be liable or considered in default if it can't provide me with the space because of delays in construction or other things that happen. And then the second question is, does this clause cover things like pandemics and being stuck in your house, right? So when I read this isn't a particularly good one for them in this situation, right? It talks about delays in construction or delays caused by conditions not under the landlord's control. Okay, so that one's probably pretty good. Political unrest, strikes, terrorism, acts of God, right? So this isn't the best for them. They probably can actually force me to continue to pay rent, which I'm doing because, frankly, I think that that's the fair thing to do, but that's just a personal decision, not a legal one.
Each month, GuildCast features episodes based on advocacy, community, and business resources. But what in the world is a force majeure? Sounds pretty fancy, right? Michele Berdinis of Beeline Legal breaks it down for all of us in this replay of a recent Guild webinar for resources this week. Pro tip, Guild members get access to our entire library of webinars, including this one.
So let's look at another one. So this is from an office lease. And it says here that the tenant shall, right? So the tenant has to go right on doing what they're doing in a bunch of situations. And one of them happens to be, as you can see, the other blue arrow, government preemption in connection with a national emergency, right? So this one pretty well covers exactly the current situation. And it says that the tenant has to pay rent and their performance is not excused just because something's happened, like exactly what we have happening now. So that's the lawyer's answer. But let's talk about reality, right? Because that's where we live, is in reality. So what's really happening out there? So, for example, I'm on the board of my co-op and I'm in charge of the commercial property that our co-op owns. We have 4 retail spaces on Broadway, and we also have 15 office spaces. So the question we're asking ourselves is, what makes some business sense, right? As a landlord for our building, I want these businesses to survive this, right? I don't want to have a bunch of empty spaces when this is all over, because, the fact that I could go after them for the rent, if they're completely broke, if their business is broke, and even if I have a personal guarantee, but they're personally broke, how is that helping me, right? That's not helping the landlord. If you're a business owner and you have contracts with your clients, let's say that one of your clients is going to be staffing, not manning, my son would yell at me for that, is going to be staffing a booth at a trade show. And that trade show is supposed to be next month. And they hired you to put together handouts and banners and all these different things that they were going to need for the trade show. And now they're calling you and they're saying, you know what, that whole trade show has been postponed and it's not going to be until December. It probably won't serve you that well to insist that they move forward with it. It would probably be better, if you can, to make some kind of a concession to them. Oh, you know what? Hey, let's, if they're going to do it in December, let's push this out. that's cool, because when this is all over, you want that person to continue to come back to you. Or you might have other concerns or ways of thinking about it, right? There's a lot of different things that are feeding into this, but goodwill is going to matter when this is all over. And if you can help and get your clients through it, if you're a landlord and you can help and get your tenants through it. So as a tenant, you need to understand your landlord has obligations, but also your landlord wants to see you survive because he wants his tenants to be there when this is over, right? So are the parties actually able to reach an accommodation? But it's also hard for both sides to figure out what to do because we don't know how long this is going to go on. So you're agreeing that, okay, let's that banner and all those things that I was going to prepare for you, let's do that in December. But what if that trade show never happens now? That's a very different thing to just decide. We don't know what the economy is going to be like. Maybe the trade show goes on, but in the meantime, the economy has been so bad that client went out of business. So you could have maybe gotten paid something now, and that would have helped you get through it. So that's the problem that we're facing, is that normally when somebody comes to me and they want to change the terms of an existing contract, we can sit down and have a rational conversation about that, because I can say, okay, well, you're the tenant. I'll tell you what, I will cut your rent in half for the next 3 months, but then I want you to make that up over the 9 months that comes after that. And that person would be able to decide, yeah, that's a good thing. Let's do that. But right now, we don't know if that's a good thing for either side. We don't know what's going to happen 3 months from now or 9 months from now. So a lot of people are having trouble figuring out what makes sense. And so if you take anything away from this talk, I would take away the word flexibility. We need to be prepared to think and rethink each business decision that we make. All the decisions are decisions for now. We need to think in the immediate term and the long term and try not to think about the medium term, right? So when I say that, I mean, what is my cash flow right at this minute? What bills need to be paid? What clients do I have who could pay me now so that I can meet my obligations? And when this is all over, I would like my clients to come back to me. I would like them to survive. I would like them to continue to be my clients when this is over. I don't want to have to start all over from scratch. And then maybe not look so much at that medium term, because the medium term is the most uncertain part of it. So if you take anything away from this, you need to be incredibly flexible in your business decisions today and tomorrow until this is over. So
can we dive into that a little bit further? Yeah. Because I think this is like such an important point. And as business people, I can only speak for myself, but I know that I have been, even before I had my own business, when I, had a full-time job for a publisher, I've been like ever vigilant about like my credit score and paying my bills on time, and like all of these muscles that I have are like taught and really well defined because I've spent my adult life doing the work. Right. And now I feel like I'm this flexibility, right? I'm being asked to sort of like lean into all sorts of like weird discomfort around not paying, my full rent as you recommend, or, prioritizing which bills to pay, which my brain is telling me like, no, that's bad. So, and I know that you don't understand this, but like in New York, there's like, in some states, I know they've said like rent forgiveness. Like, I don't even know what that means. And maybe you do. And maybe
I don't. Right.
But I know that we don't have that.
Landlords have mortgages to pay. I mean, yes, it's
exactly.
not. Yeah. Right.
I do believe in New York, at least, that there are no evictions for the next 3 months or something. And then, understanding just peripherally the eviction process. I know it takes
I'm pretty sure that's only for residential, not for commercial, but I'm not actually sure about that. But yes, go ahead. Yep.
So I guess, is there like a rubric? Are there certain bills that you feel like maybe have more flexibility? And I know this is like a weird intersection of law and finance, but I'm just going to put it out there because I bet there are people on this call who would like to know this answer. Is there like a way to prioritize which of these like legal obligations are actually tighter than others? Like where we have more flexibility and where we don't?
Right. So again, you can go back to the force majeure clauses, right? Because some of them might actually excuse your performance. You might actually be able to get out of transactions. But I really don't think this is primarily a legal question. I think this is primarily a business question. So let me answer it as a business person, because I am a business person.
Right.
My answer is, I am doing everything that I can to make sure that both my clients and my vendors survive, right? I'm fortunate enough that with my clients, I have a pretty good relationship with them. So I have a pretty good feel for how their businesses are going. And from my vendor point of view, I also have very good relationships with them. So I'm trying to figure out, if I don't pay these people, is that going to be the end of them, right? And if I force this person to pay me right now, is that going to be the end of them? For example, with our co-op, we now have like a questionnaire online, and it asks them for their financial statements, and it asks them, have you applied for EIDL and things like that? If you have the information, use that information to do triage basically on your finances. And if you don't have that information, try to get that information, either because they owe you money and so you have some power in that relationship to get more information, or just flat out ask them. Not everybody's going to be honest, but it's like, hey, I have limited funds. And I'm totally with you, Linda. It's like somebody sends me a bill, my whole life, I just pay it like instantly without any hesitation. And it's not the way the world is working right now. So I was talking with Yannick before we started here today, and this actually relates to the question, I promise. I'm an extrovert, and having to be alone in my apartment for this period of time is a tremendous strain. And the thing that gives me comfort is that we ask introverts every day to go out there and behave like extroverts. And this is the first time I, as an extrovert, have ever been asked to do something that's against my extrovert nature. And so the key to this is flexibility, right? We all learn extroverts have to learn how to be introverts. People who are used to running their businesses in one particular way for cash flow need to learn new ways of doing it. Everything that we know and everything that we've done as far as business practices, this is the time for you to learn how to be more flexible in all of those situations, right? This is the time to adapt new strategies, to make yourself comfortable with those strategies, and to rethink those strategies every day, right? I'm used to making a plan. This is my business plan for the year. I check back with it every quarter, move ahead, tweak it, but I don't throw the whole thing away and start from scratch every quarter. But that's where we are right now, right? You have to be flexible. Sticking to one way of doing things, sticking to your old way of doing things, that ain't going to work now. You got to be flexible. You have to think things through. You have to consider things in a different light. So let me, any questions that are out there, I'm happy to answer questions. I put some topics down, business entities, general business law, contracts and leases, the stuff we've been talking about. I know probably a little bit more than most about EIDL and PPP. I am not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been looking into it and kind of keeping track of what's been going on. So if people have like easy questions on that, I'm happy to talk about that. But anything, like just ask me anything, and if I don't know it, I'll say, nope, don't know that.
Yeah, so people, please type in the chat any questions you have, and I'll get this started. So can you do a brain dump on EIDL and PPP, please?
So EIDL is basically the government saying, here's $10,000. You don't have to pay us back. The application is online. It literally took me 10 minutes to do it for my business. That's the good news. The bad news is I have literally not heard of a single person who has actually gotten any money.
Can we slow down for 1 second? Because one of the questions is, can you please explain what EIDL and PPP are?
Coming up on this episode of GuildCast.
Forming an entity, you can do that through LegalZoom, but like that's the first step, right? That won't get you that fourth bullet. Are you actually respecting this entity? And so there's more to it than that, but there's a lot of lawyers who will do that for you for a flat fee, and they will get you all set up. And if you can do that, and at the same time, that's a good time. It's like you don't want to establish a relationship with a doctor when you're sick. You want to establish a relationship with a lawyer, at some point, so that you can always go to that person when you have a question or something.
Join the Graphic Artists Guild to listen to the full version of this episode at www.graphicartistsguild.org. Thanks for listening to GuildCast. Coming up in next week's episode,
find those things, because everybody that does a business has a unique niche. So what is that? What makes you different than everyone else that will attract customers to you? So in the word vomit game, that's the purpose of it, is to get these words out and really, really think about it, instead of just saying Becky's earrings. You know what I mean? Like, that's boring. So Becky has a story, like, why did she start making earrings? Maybe her grandmother taught her, or, whatever. Chefs have great stories always. I've worked with a lot of chefs, and it's always grandma in the kitchen when they were kids, and that's where it came from. So it's like, what drove you to get up in the morning and make breakfast? Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm always looking for when we do the word vomit game, even though it's not such a classy name.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild, and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.